Well, hello there everyone, and welcome back to another Minecraft video. My name is Shells, and today we are doing something maybe a little bit different. You see, while I was browsing on Reddit, in the Minecraft build subreddit, there was this post that was made, well, quite a few months ago, by Ready Country 7266, and it intrigued me. You see, I really like the effect of having the glowing water with specifically nice swirls running through the water. I think it's a beautiful effect, and kudos to this person for making such a beautiful artwork here. They explained what they did in their description, but it wasn't the most informative, but that's okay because I think I want to try to make this effect on my own without trying to copy what they did. But essentially, the main idea of it is to use light blocks. For those of you who don't know what light blocks are, they're a creative-only block. You can only get it by using the command give at self light, and that will give you this light block here. Now, what you can do with this light block is that it allows you to be able to place an invisible light source, basically. And the nice thing about it is that you can change how bright it is or how dim it is. Right now it defaults to being the brightest light it can be, but you can right-click it and it will actually go down to 0. It takes it a moment to update the graphics a little bit there, but it is at 0 here. So then it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can basically create any level of light at any point you really want. Oh, right, you can only destroy it if you are currently holding a light block in your hand, and then poof, it's gone. Again, it takes it a second to actually realize that it's gone, but there. So that's the idea, and you can actually waterlog this block, which is what we're going to be using to then make the water light up a little bit more. Now, something that Ready Country did in their image that they created is that they only have the light blocks on the surface, and they basically painted with the light levels. I don't really want to do that. For one thing, I want to actually make it so that way the light goes down into the depths of the water, and I'm actually going to start from the bottom of the pool and go layer by layer and basically draw where I want my light blocks to go. I'll probably just, fill it with blue wool, and then I'll draw in white wool where I want light blocks to be, and I'll draw in my swirls for each layer going up. And then hopefully what that does is it stacks up different swirls on top of each other. And if I focus on the swirls to make it so that way, on this level, following this line in the water, the swirls would probably hit there and then make a little eddy there and then come down and make a swirl here, whereas one that's on a upper level would go more this way before making a swirl. And so we're going to just naturally create a whole bunch of different swirlies in the water, and I'm hoping that it makes it really layered, deep, and interesting to look at. Now, one of my concerns with just putting in light level of 15 for this, you see I have this nice swirl. If I just replace this with light blocks, so we go replace light, then that swirl is gone. You can't really see it. It just turns into one big blob. And I think that's just because light level 15 is a little bit too bright for what I want. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to replace with a much lower light level. And so we're going to maybe do, I don't know, like 4? And then you can see that it's much dimmer, but you actually get the swirl going through it, and I'm hoping that that will create a more interesting effect. That might be a little bit too dim, so I'll have to play with the different light levels and get exactly what I want. Something else that I can do is maybe I can have it so that way right now it makes just basically a straight line, but if I maybe selected just a few and made those brighter, it'll actually make the line look like it gets thicker at those points because it's brighter in those sections. And I can create some more interesting shapes just by varying the light level of the lights that are in the water. So here's where I kind of admit something to you guys. Well, I had recorded me working through all of the layers and showing you what it looked like while it was in progress. Um, I lost that footage and it's done. You can't tell during the daytime, but the moment I switch it to night, poof. Yeah, swirly water. Ta-da! Yeah, I feel really bad about that. It turns out I had a button to pause my recording, but for some reason had not made a button to unpause my recording, and so I promptly lost all of my footage of making this. Now you'll notice that it isn't very bright, and that's mostly because while I wanted the effect of it, I did not want to make it overwhelming and make it look like my water was toxic goo. Because while that is a cool effect, I still want this to look and feel like water. Now, am I 100% happy with this? I'll admit no. I was hoping that my swirls would be just a little bit more visible and a little bit more obvious. They do get a little bit lost, but there is some depth to it. It's certainly more interesting to look at than just flat water. But I'm not done there. Oh no, there is something more that I want to do with this water, and that is, you'll notice that, again, you can't actually tell any difference during the day. It looks so cool at night, but during the day, nah, nothing. It's just plain boring water. So, there is one way to affect the coloring of the water, and that is, of course, to mess with different biomes. So here we've got a very lovely color palette of our regular ocean, cold ocean, and warm ocean. Got a bit of a shout out to the pale gardens, and then I know that swamp water is more of a green color, but I don't think I'm going to be using this in our palette. I'm mostly focusing on these three colors. And you can see what I'm doing over here is that I'm putting the cold ocean in the very center and the warm ocean around the edges and having a bit of the regular ocean throughout as well. And the reason for this is, I'm hoping that's apparent, is it looks cool. It's a way of adding different color variances without it turning to night. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that over here. Now the way I can basically draw with the different biomes is I'm using what's called fast asynchronous world edit. It's a slightly different version of world edit. So if you're just using regular world edit, don't expect to be able to do this. But what I've done is, once I've got the flaw installed, I can say brush biome, and then I can pick sphere for the shape, and I can pick the size. And I only really want to have my size be a size of 2, because it doesn't take that much of a section of the biome before it changes the colors. And then you can specify what biome you want to make it. So I've got 3 brushes already set up here: cold ocean, regular ocean, and warm ocean. And I'm going to just sort of draw what I want to have happen. So really centering the cold ocean over here in the depths, and same with over here. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this and see how much I like that. So with a few clicks of my mouse, I've actually already got this pretty well done here. And I think this just looks a lot more interesting than just plain water. I do think it looks cooler at night, and so that's what we're going to look at now. We just go ahead and do a quick time set midnight to take a look at that, and woo! Now we have the combination of the swirls under the water as well as just a little bit of the color variance from the biome changes. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think this looks super cool, so I'm really, really excited about this effect. However, there is one thing that is still just nagging at me that really bothers me about this, and that's that it really lacks the sort of shimmer and animation that light reflecting off of water in real life really has. And so, if at all possible, I'd really like to add just a little bit of animation to this. And so we come to this. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a particular expert in how to make command blocks work. It's been like a decade since I've actually used them for significant builds, but I know a thing or two, and so what I've got here is just a little thing where the minecarts going back and forth is actually creating sort of a wave pattern by itself. And what they're doing is all of the minecarts on the top are using a set block to place a light block on the surface of the water, and then the minecarts underneath, which were fired off a split second after the first ones, is then coming through and setting block air behind. And it sort of creates this effect. And while this is cute and all, and I really like it, I do notice that it only really creates the wave right at the very edges of the thing. And so if I have this on the bigger water surface over here, it's basically going to create a wave that some of it's going to go off over the edge because my minecarts are going to be beyond this edge, and most of it is just going to be a big straight line going across the water. It'll add some animation, but it's not quite what I want. So I've been working on something a little bit bigger over here. So what I did over here is I really wanted to build in a big wave pattern in the actual minecarts themselves. So I have these minecarts all summoned in at different intervals in the effort to create a wave pattern as they're moving. So I don't know how well you can see it, but it just adds that little bit of a wave to it. And something I noticed with this was that when the minecarts were bouncing back and forth, it wasn't the most appealing thing in the world. So instead, I just have the minecarts running into cacti at the very end. Now, the nice thing with this is I can just kind of, spam this a little bit, and we can actually get some cool looking waves going through. See, there she blows. It looks like some of them ran into each other. They were maybe a little bit too close together. But, if I have that constantly pulsing, that's going to be creating a whole bunch of waves going down. And if I put that all running underneath the water, then and make sure that my execute command is having it detect if there's a water block above the minecarts before it places them, then it'll create just the waves of light blocks just over the water where I want it to. Now I know what you're thinking. Shells? You are summoning in a crap ton of minecarts. Aren't you going to create a whole bunch of lag by doing that? That's a lot of entities to have running all at the same time. And, well, yes, you're right. Because not only do I have this layer to worry about, I also have the same thing running on top, because I'm actually going to be having two minecart tracks running at the same time. Truth be told, I've been kind of scratching my head about this and trying to think of any way that doesn't create this sheer amount of lag to make the effect that I want. But I just can't come to any conclusions other than running a bunch of minecarts or even armor stands. Basically, I'm going to have to use a bunch of entities in order to make this work. Yeah, I don't know of any better way to do it. If you guys have any ideas, I would love to hear about them because I might just use it. Moving on to the next thing on my list to try to add some more animation to and interest to. is actually looking here at the waterfall. Now, something that's always bothered me is just how blue this waterfall is. Most of the time when you have a waterfall in real life, it's almost white in color just because of all of the sea foam and the rapids running through it. It ends up dispersing the water enough that it turns into a misty white. And so the fact that we have blue waterfalls always looks really odd. I did try using the Pale Gardens water on the waterfall, but that just turns it gray. I was a little bit disappointed. I wish it had made it more of a white color, but it didn't. So blue water is what we've got. And I know a lot of people, their solution is to add like stained glass over the top of it. Some people will actually just use stained glass instead of water running down to make good looking waterfalls. I know B-Dubs has some excellent looking waterfalls just with stained glass and like candles and other crazy stuff. I don't know that I want to do that just because, like, I might add some stained glass here and there, but it is still frozen and still lacks the animation that I would like to add. So the next solution, of course, is using particles. Now, I was messing with some of the particle effects, and I think the best one that I actually want is the particle effect called Cloud. It makes sort of a poof. And right now, basically all I'm doing is I'm using an execute command at any entity that is a type of item. Now, I know, don't throw me under the bus. The better way to do this is to tag any items that I summon in, like specific items. And then target the tag instead of targeting all items. Because currently, at the moment, if I were to throw this, then poof, it ends up making my nice poofy particle effects. So the better way to do it is tags, but I was being lazy and didn't do that. And my idea is just to summon in a couple of items. I was using other entities like fish and stuff, but they kept trying to swim in the water, whereas items float on the surface and then actually get some good momentum going down. And I had to summon in 5 different kinds of items because otherwise they just clump into one item and then all go down the water at the same time. So currently what we've got is just, piff. Now, I will say my one disappointment with this currently is that none of the items are flinging this way. I think there might be a way to basically force momentum in the summon command to then make it go wah! But I'm again lazy. I'm not gonna do that right at the moment. Wow. Wow. Whoa. Well, so now that I've explained all of the concepts behind my water effects, I suppose the next thing to do would be to actually combine them all together and see what it all looks like. Particles flowing in down the waterfall, the different lights dancing on the surface, going in waves. I think I just need to set it all up and see how it looks. The first real problem I have to solve is this one. Over there, what I was doing was I was basically just summoning in each minecart by putting in the direct coordinates. And I was doing that because there are very specific gaps between each of these command blocks in the line here. I think I also had redstone dust on top of these ones. Currently, these command blocks are blank, but that's because I didn't... this is just an example. And I really don't want to have to manually change the coordinates and submit them for every single minecart. Like, yeah, it's just one value being changed every time, but gets really tedious really fast. So ideally, I'd like to have these all be the exact same command block and then just have them lined up. And the way to do that is relative coordinates, so that way each of these is summoning a minecart exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, because there has to be a wall here, 4 blocks positive X direction right at the moment. And that allows me to actually just put them in a big line, but what that meant is I have to put all of these repeaters in a mess off to the side. There's probably a more condensed version of this, but this is as condensed as I could get the redstone to go. I like redstone, I like messing with it, but I'm not very, like, professional with it, I suppose. Um, so mine tends to get very spaghetti wire very quickly. I should point out that I did actually tag these properly, so now I can actually, use commands that look a little bit more like this, where I'm targeting the entity with the tag, so that way it's not just making every single minecart in existence put light blocks above them. Uh, so yeah, I'm actually doing things properly this time. Gasp! Be amazed! Just to show off my proof of concept here, I took that exact design and just copy and pasted it over here, and now it should actually make a proper wave pattern. But what I have to do then is figure out the spacing between these. I have to figure out exactly how big of a gap to put between all of them. The other thing is I want these to be slightly varying, because if they're the exact same gap every time, then here, when I'm manually pushing it, you get some of the cool wave variances because I'm manually pushing it, whereas if it was hit by a clock that hits it at a regular interval, you're not going to get any of that variance. So I want at least a little bit of variance, and I'm not really sure how to do that, but that's my next problem to solve. Well, I built a thing. It technically works. Basically what I've got is just a dropper randomizer over here that is randomizing between two options. One goes to the short one, the other one cancels out the short one and then goes through the longer set of repeaters. So you have either short pulses or long pulses. I think that should be sufficient. I think the problem with my machine, besides the fact that it is total spaghetti wire here, is the fact that I don't have a good way to shut this off without just, like, killing it. So currently it just, this is its off state, and then I turn it on. Once I turn it on, it's just, failing. Well, let's try that again. Once I turn it on, then it's going. It's in a continual state of motion. Oh no. Oh no. Oh my. Oh dear. That is a lot of minecarts going all at the same time. Yeah, I think these are too fast. So I think what I need to do now is actually slow both of those down. Alright, maybe I'm just not tech savvy enough for this, but I can't seem to get this to work. I went ahead and ditched my whole randomizing pulse length thing and just went with a basic etho hopper clock here, connected to a monostable circuit, and then it still is causing the problem where it's like it's doubling up on the command block, so it's firing them twice at a time. And it really shouldn't be doing that. By the time it reaches that point, it corrects itself. But that's a crap ton of minecarts that should not be there. And I'm not sure why. And also, this is way too big of a gap between, so we know that it's not the gap's problem. There's just something weird about this where it's just double firing this for some reason, even though it doesn't do that anywhere else, and specifically, it doesn't do it when I manually push the button. It works just fine when I push that button, so what am I doing wrong? I don't know. Here, go away. I think my best guess for why this is failing is because the button keeps this lit up for longer, and for some reason that's keeping it from double firing for some reason. Whereas when I'm placing this, it just goes blip and then off. I almost need a pulse extender in order to make this work, I think. Okay, I think I've got it. Moment of truth time. Let's go! Behold, it's functioning! Why did it stop? Oh no. I mean, that's not too bad of a break in it. It still looks like waves. It still looks cool. I'm gonna call this a win. I think this is done. I'm tired of messing with redstone to make this thing function. It's good enough. It's a minecart waterfall! Yeah, I was just lazy and had them drop into the void. It kills them still, you know, it's fine. For those who are interested in the syntax of my execute command here, I have execute at the entity with the tag of shimmer on if the block at this at the certain Y level is water. Then I run the set block where all the coordinates are the same except for the light level. I want it to appear on top of the water, and we're going to make it the light level 6. So that's what we're doing here. This one is exactly the same, but it is setting the block, it's targeting shimmer off instead of shimmer on, and it's setting air instead of a light block. So those are my two commands running there, and theoretically all I have to do is hit the on switch here, and everything should go off without a hitch, right? Right. Maybe. Hopefully. Nothing. We got a lot of nothing. Great. It's working! It's working and it is beautiful. Yeah, that was kind of a challenge to actually get it to function over here. And it still has problems. I'd love to say that it's, you know, working just fine, but this should all be doing the shimmer effect, and for some reason it's only starting right here. So it's got some issues, and that's what we're going to have to address right here. You see, the main problem that I'm facing right at the moment is I would love to be able to add this effect to Zora's domain in my map. You would be able to see it in Zora's domain because it is in shadow, it's kind of in a cave, so you'd be able to get all of this beautiful reflection, and it's just in one small section of the map, so I was kind of hoping that I would be able to make this little lag fest here and not have it be that big of a deal. Just to create this almost magical effect in the water. But the problem that I ran into, and the reason that it wasn't working initially, is because there's this game rule. Oh, you're not even going to be able to see it very well here because so many commands are running at the same time. But basically, there's this game rule called max command chain length that was causing me grief, and essentially it was being maxed out, and I had to increase the size of it to 100 in order to make it work. I'm not actually sure how high I could put it, and it almost makes me wonder if I increase the value again, if suddenly this will magically start working. Yeah, look at that! Poof, it works suddenly. So, that's a issue. While I could theoretically, you know, make the changes to the commands before the world works, I really, really worry that the command is there for the purpose of preventing lag. And while I have a perfectly beefy enough machine that I can run something like this, if somebody's trying to play my map on with something a little bit lesser, then we're going to run into some problems. And I really, really want to make this map as playable for as many people as possible. So, as beautiful as this effect is, I'm not sure how feasible it is to actually add it into the map. What do you guys think? Another issue I'm sure you've noticed over here is that my set block command is actually replacing some of the waterfall, which then is making the water try to spread funny, and it's making it flicker awkwardly. So, whoops! Yeah, we'd have to figure out a way to fix that if we decided to use that in the map as well. The other thing with having this many commands running all at the same time that has me concerned is if I try to add any particle effects to this waterfall like I had intended, I worry that that's going to just make this lag fest even laggier, so yeah, I don't know, but it's so pretty. I can't get over just how gorgeous it is. Just that little bit of animation to the water. It doesn't even have to be glowing that much. It's just that subtle amount of glow that just gives this water so much more life. I almost wonder what it looks like if I drop the light level down to something lower. I noticed that the rocks being really, really bright is another thing that's quite distracting. If I make this just like light level 4, how much is that? Well, it actually makes it so you can barely see the animation. So, yeah, 4's too little. Let's try just a little bit more. Light level 6 isn't bad. It's not quite as dramatic as the light level 8 was, but it plays with the rocks a little bit less, and it's less distracting from the actual water itself, I think. So I think I'm happy with that. Maybe I could bump it up to light level 7, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks with light level 6 here. And with just a little bit of added effort, we've gone ahead and added the particle effects to the waterfall, which again is more of a subtle effect, but I think it helps. I will say that this is far from perfect. Uh, the fact that I have to basically contend with lag, like my computer's actually doing pretty well right at the moment, but I am also aware that not everybody has a beefy computer that can run this kind of stuff. So while this works for me now, there's no guarantee that I could get it to work for everyone. I also have some issues with my particle effects where if any of the items land in awkward spaces, they don't die, because currently they are being killed when they reach a certain Y level. So if they fail to reach that Y level, they just stay there for forever. I'd have to come up with some way to deal with that particular issue. I did get some particles running down the side there, and I think that helps. But yeah, overall, super happy with this. So that should about do it for my little water experiment here. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching my little experimentation, and I hope that you guys are as happy with the end results as I am. I know it's a little bit on the laggy side, so I will say, if you have any ideas for how you would do this a little bit more efficiently without having 50 million minecarts running all at once, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye!